And joining us to help us out is the Barking Guy. Good morning, Barking Guy.
Morning, Gene. How are you?
Hey, we are so glad it is Monday and that you're here. And
Yeah. And I survived.
yeah,
I survived Ian.
so tell us a little bit about your experience if you care to share with us on that.
Well, as some of you may know, I had a death in the family and I had to go to Sarasota for the memorial. And that was when Ian hit.
So you're in Sarasota. So Sarasota is where in relation to the rest of Florida?
Sarasota is an hour south of Tampa and an hour north of where the hurricane hit in Fort Myers.
Okay.
That's where it made landfall.
So you
Annabelle Island and all that area.
so you were there when it came ashore?
I wasn't in Fort Myers. I was in Sarasota, which was
Right.
an hour north.
So what was that whole weather event like for you?
Well, there was a lot of high winds, and I was at my dad's apartment, sheltering in place there. Unlike where my hotel was, that was evacuation zone B as in boy. Dad's apartment was evacuation zone D as in David or dad. And sheltering in place there, I came. Yeah, the hurricane event was Wednesday, so I was there about 8 o'clock in the morning. We were supposed to have the memorial, but we didn't have it. That was delayed until Friday.
Okay.
We were without power for 9 hours. It went out at 3 o'clock, and it came back at midnight. But we didn't have internet or TV. I was watching the TV for the hurricane stuff
Right.
until it went out. When the power came back on, we didn't have the internet for TV.
Well, I don't know about you, Barking Guy, but I got rabbit ears on the roof of my house. Did all of a sudden people break out the old rabbit ears so they could watch the over-the-air TV?
He didn't have it.
He didn't have rabbit ears?
He
Okay.
didn't have rabbit ears, and we finally fixed up a radio for him.
Okay. Found a radio and some batteries?
Yep.
Okay.
So I stayed over at his place Wednesday night, Thursday morning, went back to the hotel. The traffic lights were out and there was no gas to be had.
My goodness.
But the people were out and about and the cars survived. My truck survived.
Okay.
There was debris all over the place, but there was nothing big. Now, some houses had trees fall on them, but Dad's place was lucky. We survived.
Good thing you had your electric vehicle, because I'm sure without electricity it lasted the whole time. That's a joke, of course.
Uh-huh. Well, getting out Saturday, leaving there was no gas to be had on Clark Road in Sarasota.
Mm-hmm.
There was one station on Bee Ridge, which was a couple miles north. So I went out that way. They had gas, but there was a long line.
I can
I
imagine.
had enough gas to get north of Tampa, and there was like 3 exits I was going to try. The first one and the first gas station had gas.
Ah.
Thanks to Gas Buddy.
So, was there any reports of looting, or were people pretty well behaved in where you were?
Where I was, there was no looting. but there was reports where the damage was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the press just hype up these disasters. But I got news for you. If you do what you're supposed to do, if they say zone A and B evacuate, do it, and you'll be okay.
Well, most people are. I saw an interesting stat this morning on the Fox News feed that we have here in the studio, and it said 68 confirmed deaths, or 63, 68. I think it was 68. Most of those are in Florida. There's a few up in the Carolinas because after it crossed Florida, it became a hurricane again, and then it landed up the East Coast.
Yes, it did.
But then they included the number of deaths reported from Cuba. I'm like, well, when did we start? I mean, people are people, and you know, sorry to see people killed, but it's Cuba. Why are we reporting anything from Cuba? You know, it kind of struck me as odd that we were showing death toll from the hurricane, and we were including Cuban deaths in that total. That's a whole nother country. That's a bunch of communists down there, and feel bad for them, but you know, they chose to go that route a long time ago. And you know, the situation hasn't changed as far as I know. So how quickly has power been coming back on through that whole area that you're in? Is it getting restored pretty quickly?
Well, where I was, the power was back on Thursday morning at around midnight, but the lights weren't working. When I left on Saturday, many of them were working.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a few that weren't. And as far as what I heard on the TV and the radio, there were rescues in Cajun Navy and all that down, down near Fort Myers.
Mm-hmm.
And there was flooding in Orlando.
Okay.
But the mouse was coming back.
Okay. Hey, we need to go to the news. Can you stick around for a few?
Yeah.
We'll get the full report on the other side of the news.
I'm Rick.